What the boys found. What the boys found. Focus question. What did the boys find in the cave and why was it important? Discovery in the woods. Have you ever been out for a walk and stumbled over a mysterious hole? Did you hesitate, look down into the darkness, and wonder what was under there? Well, that just happened for four teenage boys near Lascaux, Maine in southern France on a warm September day in 1940. Marcel Levidet, three friends, and a dog were exploring the woods around the town of Montignac when they discovered the hole. Several years before, a large pine tree had been struck by lightning and tumbled over, exposing a gaping entrance to what turned out to be one of history's most interesting treasures. As the dog barked excitedly, Marcel and his friends dropped to their knees and peered into the hole. Without a light, it was impossible to make out what lay below, but they could tell that something hollow and thrilling was hidden there. They had a feeling that the opening was something other than a burrow or a tunnel created by a mole or a groundhog. The boys could barely contain their excitement. What had they found? Was this a cave or perhaps a long bird's tub? They felt they had to follow their instincts and continue their exploration. They had plans to return with a light and some shovels. Exploring the cave. A few days later, Marcel and his friends returned to the hole with a lantern. Digging quickly, they enlarged the hole, and one by one they slipped into it, fell onto a pile of rocks, and looked around. Their light was very dim, and it took several minutes to become accustomed to the darkness in their underground shape. They saw that another entrance, almost a doorway into a shadowy space beyond, was behind some rocks. They looked at each other, nodded and struggled, and held the lantern higher and moved into a large dark space. The boys continued to explore the cave together, going deeper and deeper into the ground until they encountered a deep, narrow passage too small for all of them to fit through. After taking it over, they decided that Marcel should go forward alone. He would take the lantern and enlarge the passageway and return for the others. Carrying the lantern, a shovel, and some rope, Marcel squeezed through the space, digging as he went. After a while, he lowered the rope and dropped down a shaft into a cavernous room below. Holding the lantern higher, he peered through the darkness at the wall surrounding him. The wall was covered with bas-relief image that are curved out of a surface, making the image raised from the surface, painting of animals. Marcel moved closer. Images of horses, cows, stags, and bison seemed to dance and gallop and swim across the wall of the cave. Marcel could barely contain himself. He hurried out of the room and climbed up. As he made his way back to his friends, he noticed other pictures on the wall was the passageway. More questions, more exploration. By the next morning, the news of the boys' discovery had spread throughout the village. Villagers descended upon the cave and found other rooms filled with new and exciting carvings. Clearly, these works were very, very old, and before long, archaeologists came to the cave to study them. Archaeologists are scientists who study ancient cultures using the objects that people leave behind. The archaeologists looked at the pictures very carefully, and the longer they looked, the more questions they asked. Who painted these mysterious paintings and how old were they? Why were they painted in underground caves? Why did the artists paint only large birds and animals such as horses and bulls, and ignore small creatures such as snakes and fish? How could such perfect art be created in such a dark space? There were tiny holes in the wall halfway up to the high ceiling. Why? What purpose did they serve? These paintings were clearly very old, but how old? The archaeologists began trying to figure out when the paintings were created. To do so, they tried several different methods. Many scientists started by looking at the paintings themselves. They analyzed the paintings themselves. They analyzed the dyes, paints, or other materials used to create colors. If the artists used charcoal, scientists might be able to date them using the radiocarbon method. Things that contain carbon can be dated by measuring how much the carbon has changed. But they found that these pictures could not be dated in this way. The scientists had to lower their eyes to find the answer to their questions. On the ground below the pictures, they found flint and bone fragments used to curve the pictures and pigments used to create colors. Like fossils, the materials were sealed in the layers of the ground. After a great deal of study, the scientists finally understood what the boys had found. The pictures on the wall had been created by Stone Age people who lived about 17,000 years earlier. Who painted the caves? Still, like other caves in the area, the Lascaux cave held many more secrets. Scientists wondered who these artists were. Why had they carved the painting pictures so far on the ground? Scientists in 1940 already knew a great deal about Stone Age people. Stone Age men were hunters who killed and ate large animals such as bison. They were also people who believed in the magical powers of their leader, the shaman. Scientists wondered if the pictures on the wall of the Lascaux head could possibly have been carved and painted by a shaman, to try to communicate with spirits of people who had lived before. Could he have painted the pictures to ensure a successful hunt? Or could the hunters themselves have created the pictures as a way to bring them luck on their hunt? In other nearby caves, scientists found small and large footprints. Did these mean that children helped the artists or came to visit the shaman with their parents? One question really befuddled the scientists. How were the artists able to be? It was very dark deep inside the cave, and no one believed the Stone Age people used lighting that could be carried into the cave. So, did the Stone Age people come first and the people who did the paintings follow much later after fire had been discovered? As with many questions that seemed to have no answers, this one was solved by accident. Someone found a piece of sandstone that was hollowed out on one side. Inside the hollowed-out circle was some leftover carbon. When the carbon was analyzed and dated, scientists found traces of animal fat. The lighting mysterious was solved. Stone Age artists lit their workspace by burning lamps filled with animal fat. But other questions remained. How did the artists manage to carve and paint the glorious pictures at the top of the painted gallery? The ceiling in the gallery is very, very high and really impossible to reach. Could those holes halfway up the wall hold the answer? Scientists estimated the size of the artists. They guessed how far the artists were from those high paintings. When they were finished guessing, they deduced the answer. The holes were used for a temporary scaffold that the artists climbed or stood on as they painted. What were Stone Age artists like? How did they create color? What tools did they use? What were they thinking? Luckily, the artists left all kinds of clues behind on the ground below their masterpieces. Can you guess what tools they used to curve the stone walls inside the cave? The answer is they used more than one kind of tool depending on the kind of rock they were curving. If the rock was very soft, they used a stick or their finger. If the rock was very hard, they curved a pointed or rounded stone tools to cut into the rock face. Other rock faces were impossible to curve at all and had to be painted. Most of the pictures were painted with red and black pigments made from mineral and metal found in the earth. Scientists understood why the colors of Lascaux's paintings remained on the rock wall for 17,000 years. Question: can you guess why the colors didn't fade? See answer no, page 23. I see answers on pages 23. Understanding the cave art. What else do the caves tell us? Do we know what the carvings and paintings mean? One thing that the caves tell us is that man, woman, and children have always drawn pictures and always will. Stone Age people did not live in these caves. They went down into the earth and created pictures that represented something in their lives. Whether they went there just to draw or to be near their ancestors who lived before or to seek help from that shaman, we may never know, but they were still creating art. The answer is the colors on the rock walls didn't fade because the pigments were created from minerals and were protected in the caves from rain, wind, snow, and sun. When we look at paintings created 50 years ago or even today, can we understand what the artist was thinking? And do we really need to know, or is it enough to look at a picture and said, "Wow, that's beautiful"?